Merab Dvalishvili, Nick, what a performance. This guy is, we knew he was a cardio machine coming into the fight. He showed us that he really does have the highest of levels of the full gamut of MMA skills. He was able to stay safe on the feet, really maintain the distance with Sugar Sean well, and enter on his terms, which is something that we talk a lot about on this channel. When you're going up against a really elite striker who has knockout power, when you're trying to make your entrances, you have to do it on your terms and at the right times where it's beneficial and advantageous for you. And in this case, those advantageous moments for Merab were the opportunities to get the takedowns, and he certainly got them in spades last night. Want to get your thoughts. We're going to talk about what's next for both gentlemen, but first I want to talk about just the fight as a whole and get your technical breakdown.
Well, I loved this entire fight, and I know that a lot of people are like, looking at the main and co-main of UFC Noche, saying that they were a little bit lackluster, a little bit boring, especially following the fights that came before. There was tons of great rounds, great knockouts, great finishes. But this type of fight is one that should stick out to a lot of people because everything that I predicted, and most people were predicting similar to me. Sugar Sean's going to be able to keep him at range, going to keep him outside. Merab's job is to get inside and close the distance. Everything I thought was going to happen in this fight didn't. Something else, usually the actual reverse of what I was predicting, took place. And the first thing I want to talk about regarding that is Merab's distance. You know, everybody thinks that if you're a wrestler, you need to get inside, right? The striker wants to stay long, especially when he's got a range and reach advantage. And the wrestler needs to get inside if he wants to implement his game. And what was really insane is Merab did the exact opposite of that. He was like, I'm going to stay 5 feet out of striking range from Sugar Sean, and I don't care if the crowd's booing. I don't care if he's getting frustrated. I'm going to stay outside, engage on my own terms, like you said, and move in when the time is right, and I get Sugar Sean a little bit frustrated, starting to bring the fight to me. I thought it was brilliant. I honestly did not see it coming at all. And shortly after we saw what the game plan was for Merab, I assumed Sugar Sean would be able to make some adjustments and figure it out. Not saying that I thought after the first or second round that Merab was going to take the Sugar Sean was going to take the whole fight over and stop all of what Merab had come in planning to do. But I thought that he would be able to make some adjustments with the range. But man, he had no answers. And some fighters just have off nights. They're a little bit flat. And most importantly, when you're flat and you have somebody doing something that you're not familiar with, that you didn't plan for, you tend to get gun shy. And I don't think that Sugar was ever afraid of getting dropped or knocked out by Merab, but he was very, very cautious of the takedown. And that sort of froze him. That made him non-offensive. It made him kind of just a punching bag for Merab. And I know Merab was moving on the outside very well, but as soon as Sugar Sean started to feel the pressure of being down on the cards, started to feel the pressure of not getting any offense off, there were rounds where he scored 6 strikes to Merab's 61 strikes.
Which is insane. If you think about O'Malley as a striker and how dynamic and prolific he is, and the fight that he just had prior to this one in the Cheeto Vera fight, you know, Sean is a volume machine, and he has that pop on his shot as well. So to see 6 strikes in a round is staggering when you're talking about Sean O'Malley.
Right, and Merab obviously wasn't outstriking him on the feet by 10-fold margin, but it was all on the ground. And the way he was able to come up with a game plan and then utilize it perfectly was championship level stuff. I think that was the breakout performance that Merab needed. Everybody knew he was a killer going into this. Sean wasn't taking him lightly. I think the styles make matchups. I don't know if that fight happens the same way again, if it does ever happen again, but what Merab came in with, the tools that he decided to bring into this war were the absolute right ones. He used them at the right times. The game plan was flawless. His corner knew exactly what to do. And props to those guys, Aljo including, for, you know, obviously suffering that big loss to Sugar Sean, moving his way out of the division for Merab to make his move in. But more importantly, understanding what Sugar Sean did so well against Aljo, and then taking it into the practice room and making sure those same things didn't happen to Merab. I thought it was a beautiful victory for their team. I had Sugar Sean winning going into this fight, and I couldn't have been more off on my prediction. I thought he was going to be able to find his shots. Unfortunately, he didn't find anything with any sort of serious success until the 5th round. And I'll get into that a little bit after you kind of give me your initial thoughts on this thing. But hats off to Merab and his team.
Yeah, no, Merab did an excellent job, and I think Aljo was a big catalyst to helping him prepare for this fight. You know, Aljo and Merab are two different styles of fighter.
Right.
So they're both great grapplers. Aljo is much more of a submission jiu-jitsu based grappler. Merab is a cardio sort of come forward wrestler.
Right.
Now, what did Merab do it very well that Aljo did not do very well? And I will say that's have a little bit of patience and create frustrating moments. So when Sean O'Malley fought Aljamain Sterling, he was kind of dictating who was engaging. He was dictating, you know, where the fight was taking place and the range at which the fight was taking place. And so Aljo was kind of wanting to get into that range and strike with him. And one thing that Aljo realized is that he's not as good a striker as Sean.
Right.
And he started to get hit with some shots. The straight punches were going, the kicks to the legs and things like that were starting to, you know, work for Sean O'Malley. And what did that make Aljo do? Get a bit frustrated and go in sort of half-assed with a shot.
Right.
And that shot exposed him, and that's where the knockdown happened and ultimately the finish. Merab did the exact inverse of that. Merab brought the frustration to O'Malley rather than O'Malley bringing it to him. Every time Merab would engage on the feet, he would be, as you said, 5-6 feet out of range. And then he would kind of jump in and throw a couple of shots, a little flurry, and immediately get himself back out and start to circle.
Right.
And Sean eventually got to the point where he was almost chasing a bit.
Right.
And Merab made himself like a ghost. Every time O'Malley would even indicate that he was coming forward, he would take 2 or 3 steps back and circle.
Right.
And you could see the frustration on O'Malley's face starting to build. And then he's like, okay, well, I got to do something because this guy's landing a takedown in almost every round. And so I've got to work my offense. If this guy's not going to let me, if he's not going to willingly get into range with me, I'm going to have to bring the fire to him,
Right.
which is exactly what a great wrestler like Merab wants you to do. Because when you're coming for, you know, the hardest thing to do as a wrestler is take somebody down when they're backing up well, they're sprawling well. But when they're giving you the momentum and all you have to do is read when they're coming in, change levels and get the takedown,
Right.
that allows you to sort of get your takedowns at will, which is what Merab did. Now, we saw kind of a glaring hole in O'Malley's game last night. You know, we thought, I think you and I both going into this fight, he was more like Adesanya in the sense that, yes, he's not a wrestler. We all know he's a prolific striker, but he's got great takedown defense. You know,
Right.
think Yoel Romero, people like that, very, very high-level wrestlers that had a hard time getting Izzy on the ground. You know, maybe just Jan Blachowicz being the one example, one exception to that rule. Izzy's been very good at preventing the takedown. So I thought Sean would have kind of a similar takedown defense game. And I know he's going up against, you know, potentially one of the best wrestlers in all the UFC,
Right.
a guy who picked up and emphatically slammed to the canvas an Olympic gold medalist wrestler in Henry Cejudo.
Right.
So,
and
you
has
know,
shot 49 takedowns in one fight before.
exactly right. So I'm not saying or suggesting that Sean O'Malley has bad takedown defense. He just has bad takedown defense compared to Merab's takedown offense.
Right.
So, you know, in that sense, there wasn't a whole lot he could do. And it's going to be hard for him to close that gap on guys like Merab because they're just so good. They're so tenacious. And Merab, if he has that fight 10 times, he's going to do the same thing all 10 times.
Yeah.
He's going to stay far away. He's going to force you to come in. So unless Sean could figure out a way to close that distance, and that sort of push kick to the body seemed to actually be a tool that Sean should have brought out earlier in the fight.
Right.
Not to say that would have made a difference in the outcome of the fight, but he certainly did hurt Merab with that in the last 90 seconds of the fight. It was just too little too late. But all in all, Merab, and it wasn't to me a boring fight because, you know, that you mentioned the round where Merab had 61 strikes. Some of those were big strikes.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those punches to the face when O'Malley was down definitely took their toll. Those knees to the thigh, I mean, he was absolutely tearing Sean's legs up.
Yeah.
There was some good knees to the head, and then Sean quickly would reach down and touch the ground so he could be a quote-unquote grounded opponent, which is going to be something that a luxury you can only enjoy for so much longer because that rule is actually changing. But to me, it wasn't a lay and pray. And I'm seeing a lot of stuff online today that, oh, Merab just, you know, he's a boring fighter. He took him down and rinse, repeat, lay and pray. That is not what Merab Dvalishvili did. Sean O'Malley was a dangerous fighter from beginning to end. Merab was looking for big shots on the ground. He was looking for good control, looking for submissions. Hats off to him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to touch a little bit on the X's and O's because, like I said, I got everything wrong in the prediction of this fight. But it opened my eyes to what Merab was thinking and what Sugar was thinking. And I came into this fight saying, I think that Sugar Sean is going to use mostly hands to get the job done. I think if he's going to keep Merab away, he can't throw too many kicks. He does love to throw really exciting, wild kicks, but that can compromise your base, your balance, and of course, when you're fighting against a wrestler, all they want to do is get contact with one of your legs, or if they're Greco-Roman, get a body lock of some sort. But Merab wasn't gung-ho about trying to find that. He knew in 25 minutes he would have his moments to do that. And if he stayed far enough away, he didn't have to worry about the striking. So in hindsight, I believe Sugar Sean thinks the same thing that I was thinking after the fight. That fifth round, he started to find the push and teep up the middle. And I only say this because of what happened earlier in the fight, in the fourth round and in the third round. Merab was very dangerous when catching kicks because if you send too many up the sides, it can really be one of those things where, yes, he's going to absorb one, but he's going to catch the kick, and now you're going to be put on the ground. But we saw Sean throw a couple of kicks in the third and fourth rounds that, to me, were effective. And even though they were getting caught sometimes, they were pushes and teeps up the middle. So it was attacking the body, and it would have helped zap Merab's tank a little bit. If there is anything that can do that, that would probably be the one thing that could do it. So I think Sugar Sean should have noticed that his balance is actually pretty good when he gets his leg caught. He doesn't freak out. He doesn't get thrown to his back immediately. He doesn't get dragged to the cage immediately. He's got very good balance in there when he's on one foot. So I think what he should have done is realize that a little bit earlier and started to attack with his legs a little bit more. Avoid what I was thinking originally, which is don't throw any kicks because he's going to catch one and you're going to wind up on your back. I think the caution side of Sugar Sean and the inability to throw kicks, or the desire to not throw kicks to avoid being taken down, is actually what's going to bite him in the ass. And I think when he goes back and watches this fight, he's going to realize that he could have opened up with some kicks a little bit more. Merab just had a great game plan and shut all that down. But I think that he saw a little bit of success at the end of the fight. It's not like Sugar was ever mentally checked out or ready to get out of there and just accepting defeat. I think he did want to try to find the victory all the way to the very end. One thing that stuck out to me that Tim Welch never said in the corner at all 5 rounds, which was very interesting to me, was he never said, we need more volume, we need more aggression, we need to see you throw more offense. He would tell him what to do. He would say, you got to snipe him from outside. When he comes in, do this. And he was giving sound advice in the corners, but he was never telling him to push on the gas. He was never telling him to throw more volume on the feet. And I think that would have helped him a lot, especially Tim Welch is a brilliant mind in the sport. So he was seeing the same things I was seeing. Great balance from Sugar Sean. And if he would have started throwing that kick a little bit earlier, he might have had the ability to zap Merab's tank just a little bit. But the night belongs to Merab Dvalishvili. I think that styles make matchups, and if he goes out there and does the same sort of style that he just did against the other great strikers at 135, they're also going to be left in fits trying to figure out what to do. I think when you have like an Umar Nurmagomedov, who it seems that's going to be who he's fighting next, it's going to be a totally different fight. You're going to see more grappling exchanges and closer, their body shapes are a little bit more similar. So you're going to see some inside fighting and less distance between the two fighters. But if Merab ever finds himself in there with a Sugar Sean again or a Cory Sandhagen, he needs to stick to that game plan because that thing worked really well.
Yeah, and certainly next week we'll break down the potential matchup, what looks like coming next, Umar Nurmagomedov versus Merab Dvalishvili.
Right.
And I just want to touch a little bit, too, on what could be next for O'Malley. Yeah. I think Cory Sandhagen, you mentioned, he's a great fighter, good stylistic matchup at the top of 135.
Fun fight.
I don't think an immediate rematch is warranted, and I think Umar is certainly deserving. He was in the crowd last night. I'm a little surprised they didn't just go ahead and bring him into the cage and make that match right then and there. It seems like that makes the most sense. But another thing Sean could do, Sean's a tall guy and he's a very slender guy. And sometimes you need a fresh coat of paint. He's had, got the title at 135. He defended it and now he's lost it. Maybe he goes up to 145 and sees what's up there for him. Maybe spend 6 or 9 months away from the octagon, getting himself a little bit, filling that frame out a little bit and roll his dice at 145. Just a thought. And I'm sure more news will come out this week on, what the next directions for both men will be. And then obviously, as I said, we'll touch on that.
Yeah, we didn't get to hear him in the post-fight. I never saw anything about his post-fight speech, so I didn't see anything else. So
yeah, he waited, but Merab kind of talked for a while, and Joe Rogan just let him have his moment.
Well, even the post-fight press conference, I didn't see him in there at all.
No,
so I think he might either went to the hospital and they couldn't get him, but I didn't see anything sticking out to me that was like, oh, he needs to get immediate medical attention. So I don't know what happened. I'd love to hear from Sugar.
Yeah, for sure, and I think we will this coming week. But I want to move on.